Last time, with our beautiful lizards, we destroyed the Dark Elves, who were trying to prevent us from doing one of our rituals. We also destroyed Chaos for the same reason in a messy battle that we just somehow won. And with that sorted, we were able to clear up all of the problems across our territory, make sure the ritual was completed, and now we're back to business, fighting the vampires to the north, and we've just got started taking the Black Pyramid of Nagash. We're now in the next turn where we learn that the elves have completed their ritual, but so have we. So we're neck and neck with them, although we might be slightly ahead on ritual currency. Now anyway, we're getting to the business of attacking the vampires, and what you'll notice is that the vampires don't have any armies. They might have had a lord with a couple of units somewhere or other, but for the most part their territory was just empty. So what we'll be doing here is just storming through and taking it all extremely quickly. This was the hardest part. They did have a full stack garrison in this walled settlement, so I just overwhelmed it with the auto-resolve, although we did lose a unit, so that will be some permanent loss as the price to doing this the quick way. But after that, we're not going to have much trouble. They come to us asking for peace, which is always a sign that you're about to win when the AI just offers peace out of the blue. We'll continue on. We've got Ruwa going for the Springs of Eternal Life. Always nice to have, although they don't provide any relevant trade resources. They give you marble or something. We can't sell the water to other countries wishing to have Eternal Life, unfortunately. And anyway, we'll move on. Next attack, the Salt Plain. Nothing there, so kroq-gar just stamps on in. Say goodbye to that garrison. We'll occupy that as well. So now we're starting a new province here, Ash River. Just one more vampire settlement to take. Qatar, not at all named after anywhere in real life, I'm sure. In we go with our Slan Mage, so that's easy peasy. And just like that, goodbye to the vampires. They just got wiped out extremely quickly over the course of 2 or so turns. Now we have all their stuff, and that's going to be a bit annoying because it's all super corrupt. We can't step outside due to the attrition, and it's going to take us a long time to get the buildings we need to get rid of the corruption, and because some of it's due to local populace, which you can never change, it will always be somewhat corrupt. We just have to constantly fight it to keep it below 50%. I think that's the threshold for not having attrition. So that's our new battle, but there is still a bit more war to think about because we now have orcs on our border. And I don't think we want to keep them as a neighbour. They're probably going to be very unreliable, and since they're right on the edge of the map, we could just quickly go and attack them to wipe them out, so we don't have to worry too much about them. There's also human pirates up to the north, which we may have to worry about at some point. I was trying here to find where the other settlement was. I couldn't see it. Our faction doesn't know where it is, we just know its name, so that was inconvenient. It's basically just to the north of where these two settlements are. As you can see, I did decide we might as well go to war with them, so we'll get things started at Numas using our Slan Mage Priest to besiege them. That's just an auto-resolve situation, but I ended up leaving it because I wanted to see what the other attack would look like and possibly change my plan based on how this went. So kroq-gar takes our main force to fight a nearby army. Unfortunately, it was still really far in our favour. I say unfortunately because I was thinking it might be interesting to get a battle with the orcs, just for some variety, just to kill something different. But actually, we are going to get a battle with them in a bit, so this wasn't too bad. I kind of begrudgingly auto-resolved it, thinking, well, that was boring. But we still are going to get something out of this war at least. Now, this province is uninhabitable to Lizardmen. You actually can still inhabit it. It just gives you all these penalties, and I didn't want to deal with the fact it was probably going to keep rebelling or something if we try to build stuff here, so I'm just going to raise that province up in the very corner. Now our Slan Mage Priest gets his victory with the auto-resolve and moves on in. This time we want to occupy because that actually completes Ash River as a province, so that's all very nice. That'll help us with the corruption. Now at first I was going to go back and just ignore whatever their last settlement was, but I ended up thinking, no, let's go look for it. We very quickly discovered it just over the border. You can see from the lines in the desert marking where the boundaries of regions are that there is a hostile region up there, so I knew it was there somewhere at least. They are recruiting an army. That means it's somewhat in our interest to attack them right away, but I wasn't in a perfectly healthy state. I thought maybe I could encamp and use global recruitment to get some units first. The issue with that plan is the enemy will recruit faster than we will, so it's probably better just to attack right away, and that's what I went for. So I rushed in. I wanted to attack the general standing outside the settlement because we might be able to get them into a fight outside of their walls. This doesn't prove to be the case. That general runs away. So now he's not going to be involved in this fight, but we are going to have to make a settlement assault. So that'll make life a tiny bit harder, but perhaps that's what we want, since fighting this army in the field would have been an easy order to resolve. So now we'll get a more difficult settlement assault. Let's see how this goes. We're once again going to try and use the tactic where we stick to the edges of the map and try and stay in the arc of fire of only a couple of their towers at any time, just to minimise the damage we'll take on approach. I'm also doing the same strategy I used previously, where the army attacks one gate and a collection of monsters goes for another one. Here I've actually got 2 carnosaurs now because our veteran has gained one as a mount, although we are lacking our skink priest and his all-important stegodon mount, so that is a shame. There are some archers up there firing at us, but since we're just running up to the gate so quickly, those archers will be effectively pointless in this battle. On the other end of things, we're getting our ladders up on the wall. I'm sending a few units to attack the gate and a few others to climb up the wall on a few select points to fight with enemy archers up there. The other gates were opened pretty quickly by our monster team, so we rush in looking for trouble. There were some savage orc boys waiting behind the gate and we go right into battle. Although actually these guys proved to be a tiny bit dangerous for our kroq-gar. They started losing health really fast. They actually started the battle with reduced health, but were still losing health very quickly, and when this rear attack came in with some additional orcs, things seemed to get bad quickly. This unit was being decimated. I think the enemy have very high attack, these savage orc boys. They're a sort of DPS unit that dies easily but does a lot of damage. So against units that aren't completely armoured and have really high defense stats, like the kroq-gars, they'll have a little bit of success. Against everything else, our stats are just too high. They're still going to be unable to damage us, and we'll just wreck them, exploiting the fact that they have no armour and stuff, so all of our attacks will just be killing them super fast. Pretty much the same thing on the other end of the wall. Again, it's all savage orc types, so our guys who have high defense stats will just resist their attack and then easily kill, even with our not particularly effective counterattacks. We almost lost the kroq-gars. Luckily, various lizard units have the ability to cast heals. It's not technically magic, I think it's a special lizard blood ability or something. It reduces your stats but gets your health back, so I'm using that to keep the kroq-gars alive. And at this point, we've done so much damage to the blobs of enemies that they're starting to rout, so that's going to clear things up very nicely, and I'm getting our monsters to come back here and help out the kroq-gars just to clear up the area around them even more. Meanwhile, we opened up the other gate with our main army, cutting through the enemies, the very small number of enemies that was defending the other side. The enemy commander runs away, and for the troops up on the wall, that's going to be a sign that things aren't going very well, and they are soon to be killed. Although I don't know what our lizards are doing to the orcs here. Both sides are just kind of vaguely waving at each other. I hope that's doing damage in some way. So yes, now with so much stuff routing, we're just going to kill as much as we can, and every now and again one of these units will somehow come back from routing even though we're amidst them, so we are going to have to fight a tiny bit more to finish them off, but no problem, especially for our monster crew. We wreck them up old school, and that's going to end this battle. It doesn't matter if stuff routes at the end there, since this is a settlement assault, so everything dies in the end. A nice decisive victory. So wasn't really a particularly challenging battle, didn't really expect it to be. I just wanted to do something against the orcs, got an achievement for it for some reason, and we are once again going to raise the settlement since we can't really sit here. So that's that done. Now the orcs have no territory. We still have them as a faction on the map because there's one orc out there who could in principle recolonize those ruins. So in the next turn, before going home, I am going to have to come over here and kill this guy. He didn't even run away, so that was good. I guess he really wanted a nice honourable death. That's the top knot gone. We've got a nice little follower there as a result. The casualties replenished buff is always very handy. So that's sorted. Now we're going to start heading back to our territory. We've kind of cleared out the top right hand corner of our continent now, but the top left hand corner still leaves much to be desired. It's covered in vampires and mostly actually abominations. We're going to get started with our conquest of it though right now by going after the vampire faction, because I noticed they only have one region, so we can just really quickly do this before thinking about how we'll deal with the abominations. Here's one little annoyance that Total War Warhammer 2 keeps hitting me with. You can't click on areas of the map to bring up the diplomacy screen. I think in the old ones you just clicked on the region belonging to the person you wanted to talk to and it would bring them up. Here you have to find them in the list, which I struggled with a tiny bit because I couldn't remember what these guys were actually called. Anyway, I tried to negotiate with the Abominations, who they were also at war with, to get the Abominations to pay me to make this attack. Didn't really work, but we're going to make it anyway. They do have a full stack garrison and walls, so Rouar's going to have a tiny bit of a challenge getting in here by the looks of things. I'm going to start preparing a few pieces of siege equipment. His army isn't all decked out with monsters, so it's not quite so easy to just rush through the gates. Now I use my skink priest to go and harass a nearby army to stop it from reinforcing, but while doing that it revealed to me they actually do have some stuff up there, so they might come and counterattack if they really want to. Needed to keep that in mind. Luckily enough they didn't bother, they actually counterattacked with just the garrison of the town, which is the perfect thing for us because now we don't have to fight them over the walls, we can fight a field battle to which our army is much better suited and just whittle them down to make a siege assault super easy after this. Nothing special about the map really, although I did have this little forest on my right. I tried to use it to hide a stegodon next to our army. That did not at all work. I guess they can't hide, and in fact it seemed to have the opposite result. They sent a unit of cav ahead of their army just to fight this stegodon on its own. Not really going to work though, that unit can't beat the stegodon. That's an anti-infantry specialist unit, so not so good against monsters and will just slowly wreck it. Plus now that they're distracted we can sneak over a few Spearsaurus to go and add into that melee just to make sure that we win. Meanwhile, the rest of their army just going to run at us in a standard sort of fashion. They've got a couple of units of Vargeists here coming over to join this fight, but with my spears now available, that'll make sure they're not going to do too much damage. Their cavalry there did somehow get a charge through the forest off at point blank range into my spears, so that would have done a bit of damage, but now we'll be able to fight them off pretty easily. And there are the Vargeists having a go at the stegodon, not really going to work. The other unit decides not to engage us there and comes over to fight in the main battle, probably a better idea. I'm actually pretty much ignoring it right now because I'm getting these spears to charge forwards. I really want to get these crypt horrors engaged with my spear unit so we'll get that damage bonus against them. So in my attempts to do that, I've kind of charged the unit way out of the line, and now there's going to be this little separate battle going on here as the enemy's greatsword infantry comes in to fight us. That's not good. They're probably the direct counter to our spear unit. We'll need to support them later on. My attempts on the front line to get spears to fight their crypt horrors didn't really work, so it's just going to be a huge general brawl, everything they have against everything I have. Luckily, a lot of the time it's Saurus warriors, which are just generally decent against everything, so it's just going to be a grind, hopefully a grind in our favour. They did get some of their Vargeists behind our lines for a rear attack, but our skinks with blowpipes managed to take most of them down while they were distracted wandering around back there. We've also wiped out those cavalry on the flanks, and now all this stuff's going to come over to try and support our spears, who have now lost half their strength and are being cursed by the enemy's magic. It's not a good situation. My attack here was very unsophisticated. I just charged my blob of units into theirs to see what happens. On the front line I'm using a bit of magic of my own, using the Midnight Curse thing, I can't remember what it's called, the one that reduces all of the enemy's armour, since they have lots of Grave Guard who do have decent armour, so that will make them die significantly faster. Plus we can get a nice rear attack, with only spears admittedly, but still that's going to do something, one would hope. Plus it distracts some of their horrors here to come and fight with the spears, so that's nice, that will go in our favour. So everything's just getting locked down. We've got the enemy engaged with most of our stuff, and it's just a case of trying to win all the individual fights. There's some horrors deciding not to engage my one unit of reserve spears sitting off to the side there. This grind's just a huge mess, as I said. We've just got everything hacking away at their everything and hoping that's going to win. We're going for a low micro victory here, essentially. Using a bit of magic there to blow apart their Grave Guard. Probably should have targeted more onto the ghosts, who are nice targets for magic, but the ghosts can be killed with physical attacks eventually in the end, and they don't really kill you back in return, so that's nice. So here we are about a minute later. The grinds just continued to a point where it looked like we were going to win. We've pretty much got their commander, a few of the units are defeated in the centre, and the rest of them are now starting to get very low on morale. We've got lots of stuff surrounded, and once the vampire units get low on morale, they start to just die very quickly once their morale's really low. They take damage constantly while they're in the middling morale state as well, but it's just negligible. Now that they're really low on morale, they take so much damage that the entire unit just dies pretty much straight away, all of a sudden, with some very inappropriate animations, and that brings the battle to an end. A close victory. We did lose a decent amount of stuff in all of that grinding against some of the enemy's better infantry, but ultimately we've achieved our objective. There were no full units lost, so since replenishment means we'll be getting everything back for free, that effectively means no units lost, as long as we don't get attacked again this turn, and we know the enemy don't really have the capacity to do that right now. They've got a couple of agents, they're going to do some annoying agent actions that will ultimately achieve nothing, it's just wasting their money, so that's nice. In the next turn you can see they've split their forces up a tiny bit, but the more important news is this little boy. We've discovered that the elves have an army on our continent. I think they were going after these same vampires that I am. It seems they've been taking attrition because they're in a damaged state right now, and we are at war with them as a result of the first ritual when we tried to intervene just to see what would happen, and we're still at war with them since then. That means we need to be super careful, far more careful than we need to be with the actual vampires, who are unlikely to do anything. So I'm just going to start shifting our forces around a little, and I realised I could just take out the main army from the vampires right now. It's in the march stance, so it can't run away from me when I come over to it. That means we can just auto-resolve their terrible units out of existence. There we go. So they've still got 4 or 5 units between those other two armies, but they're going to be no threat whatsoever. We can just ignore this faction from now on. Now the elves actually go ahead and attack some of the survivors from the vampires, so that's nice, doing some of the work we were going to have to do. That'll save us some attrition, chasing those guys down, no doubt, and the elves are going to take the attrition instead. But now we're going to be watching them very closely. They're actually coming into our territory, so we need to make sure we don't leave anything unguarded, or that stack could easily take a little foothold out here. Now the orange lizards asked me to go to war with the abominations. I am going to agree to this deal and get some money off them, since we do need to go back to war with the abominations just to continue expanding our territory to the west, and we even now need to take places to complete the new provinces we're starting since we took the Black Tower there. The only thing holding me back from going against them with everything right now is of course these elves. We need to keep an eye on them, so we can't go fully on the offensive just in case they sneakily do something. So I'm going to start with an attack by Ruwa going down to the southwest, just to have one army going against the abominations to start with. He won't be able to get there this turn. He's just going to tank the attrition and go for the enemy. That won't be so bad, since there's no army down there. He can capture the settlement and get his troops back afterwards. Then our other two armies will garrison the settlements nearest to the elven force, so they can't do any funny business, and if we're lucky we'll be able to just take them out. I can also there get our skink priest back into the army where he belongs, so once again we'll have that additional stegodon to play with. Now the elven army looks like it wants to do something against us. It's coming into our territory and just standing there. They've got agents on the way as well, so it seems they do intend to be hostile to us in this area and actually fight. They're not going to go home now that the vampires are mostly dead. We're going to continue on with Ruwa to get this siege going against the abominations. I was surprised to learn it's a walled settlement. It didn't say it was on the campaign map, and there's even some decent units inside, so the balance bar's not entirely in our favour as I imagined it would be here. I think what's happening is the main building chain that the abominations get is slightly unique. I don't know if the beastmen have it as well, but it's this occupied settlement chain, and it essentially always gives you walls, even in cases where it wouldn't otherwise. Normally you need a separate wall building to get them. So that's a tiny bit of a shame, because if that's going to be the case across all of the abomination territory, that will make life harder. We'll see as we go on. First though, let's go after these elves. I can get both my armies to attack them right now with kroq-gar waddling into position. Then we'll move out the Slan Mage to make an attack. The elves are going to run away, so that's a good sign. We're definitely stronger than them. I was going to go after them, but kroq-gar's out of movement unfortunately, so we'll have to let them live for now, and we'll leave our two armies near each other just so they can't counterattack us either. I don't think the enemy will have the movement to get around us and go for the settlement, so we'll just sit here, and we can even recruit some units while we're out here, just so we're going to be even stronger for the next turn and can potentially continue our pursuit, or if not, go on to start going into enemy territory. Back to Sittenberg though, I did want to make this settlement assault just to get the region squared away, ready to resist any counterattack, or indeed just march on to take more abomination stuff. So we'll do this the quick way. It should be easy enough by the looks of things. So I'll bring you a few highlights from this battle, and indeed highlights from the rest of our war, including fights against the elves in the next part.